The lawyer's office felt like a tomb as he read my father's will. Each word hammered another nail into my heart, but I refused to let them see me cry. Not in front of them, not in front of Zoe. I'm Melanie, and this was the day I watched my stepmother and her precious children inherit nearly everything my father had spent his life building. The mansion at 1542 Oakwood Drive, including all contents and grounds, to my wife Zoe. Ernest, the family lawyer, read in his monotone voice. I gripped the armrests of my chair as Zoe's red lips curved into a smile. The investment portfolio and summer house in Palm Springs to be divided equally between Emerson and Bryson. My step-siblings exchanged smug glances, and to my daughter Melanie. Ernest paused, adjusting his glasses. I leave the cabin at Lake Morrison along with its contents. That's it? The words escaped before I could stop them. The cabin? Bryson snickered. Well, that's fitting. Dad always said you had a rustic soul. I'm sure you can fix it up, Emerson added with fake sweetness. Maybe start a little Etsy shop selling pine cones. I turned to Ernest. There must be some mistake. Dad wouldn't... The will is quite clear, Zoe interrupted, standing up and smoothing her designer dress. Your father knew exactly what he was doing. Some of us simply proved more deserving of his trust. The room spun slightly. 5 years. That's how long it took Zoe to convince my father to marry her after my mom died. Another 3 to turn him against me. Now here we were, 6 months after his sudden heart attack, and she had won. Completely. Ernest, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. When can I get the keys to the cabin? He pulled an envelope from his briefcase. They're right here, along with this letter your father left for you. Zoe's eyes narrowed at the mention of the letter. Well, we should be going. Lots to do, moving into the mansion and all. She gestured to her children. Coming, darlings? They followed her out like well-trained pets, leaving me alone with Ernest. I'm sorry, Melanie. My hands were tied by the legal documents. I nodded, clutching the envelope. I understand. Thank you, Ernest. Walking to my car, I remembered something Dad told me the last time we spoke alone, before Zoe banned me from visiting. The most valuable things in life, Mel, aren't always what they seem. I looked at the cabin keys in my hand. Maybe it was grief making me desperate, or maybe it was the way Zoe had smirked. But something told me there was more to this inheritance than met the eye. Dad had always loved his puzzles. Perhaps this was his final one for me to solve. The cabin door creaked open, releasing decades of dust into the afternoon light. I expected cobwebs and decay, but what I found stopped me in my tracks. Every surface was immaculate, not a speck of dust anywhere. Someone's been here recently, I muttered, running my finger along a pristine shelf. The cabin was small but meticulously organized. Vintage furniture filled the space, each piece looking more valuable than my entire apartment. But it was the walls that made my breath catch. They were covered in paintings I'd never seen before, dozens of them. A knock at the door made me jump. Hello? A man's voice called out. I saw someone drive up. I'm Ellis, the caretaker. I opened the door to find a middle-aged man in worn jeans and a flannel shirt. His eyes widened when he saw me. You must be Robert's daughter, he said. He told me you'd come eventually. You knew my father. Ellis nodded. For years. I've been maintaining this place, keeping everything exactly as he left it. He gestured at the paintings, including his collection. These were his. I walked to the nearest one, a vibrant landscape that seemed to pulse with life. I never knew he collected art. That's because these aren't just any paintings. Ellis stepped closer, lowering his voice. See this signature? It's authentic. Your father spent years tracking down lost works from artists who disappeared during wartime. Many people thought these pieces were destroyed. My hand trembled as I touched the canvas. How many are there? 37 paintings, 12 sculptures in the basement, and... Ellis walked to a seemingly solid wall and pressed a hidden panel. A section slid aside, revealing a small room filled with wooden crates. These haven't been opened since your father stored them here 15 years ago. I stared into the hidden room, my mind racing. Does anyone else know about this? Just me and your father. He made me promise to wait for you. Ellis pulled out his phone and showed me a news article. This artist's last known work sold for $4.2 million last month. You're looking at 3 of his paintings right there. My legs went weak. I grabbed the nearest chair. Why didn't he tell me? He said timing was everything, and that you'd understand when the moment was right. Ellis handed me a small key. There's a safe behind that horrible landscape painting in the bedroom. He left something for you there, too. I thought about Zoe's smug face at the will reading, about how she and her children had mocked my worthless inheritance. Ellis, I said, a plan already forming, how much do you know about the art world? He smiled. Enough to help you make your father proud. The key felt warm in my palm. Whatever was in that safe, I knew one thing for certain. Dad's final puzzle was just beginning to unfold. You're telling me your dad left you a secret art collection worth millions? Naomi nearly spilled her coffee across my kitchen table. And your stepfamily has no idea? Keep your voice down, I whispered, though we were alone in my apartment. Ellis helped me catalogue everything yesterday. We need to be smart about this. Smart how? Naomi leaned forward, her reporter instincts kicking in. If I suddenly show up with millions in art, Zoe will contest the will. We need a cover story. I pulled out my laptop. That's where you come in. Naomi's eyes lit up. You want me to create a paper trail? I'm starting an art consultation business, small at first, then growing through lucky finds and smart investments. I showed her the website I'd been working on. Meet Alexandra Rose, art dealer extraordinaire. A fake identity. Mel, are you sure? My phone buzzed. A text from Ellis. Emerson spotted at the coffee shop near the cabin, asking questions. They're already suspicious, I said. Zoe's probably wondering why I haven't tried to sell the cabin yet. Naomi grabbed my laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. Give me an hour. I'll build you a complete online presence. LinkedIn, industry references, the works. You're the best. I hugged her. I need to get back to the cabin before... Another text interrupted. Bryson's car just pulled up. Damn it. I grabbed my keys. Call Ellis. Tell him to stall them. The drive to the cabin was torture. By the time I arrived, Bryson was arguing with Ellis at the front door. As Ms. Melanie's stepsister, I have every right, Emerson was saying. Actually, you don't. I stepped out of my car. What are you doing here? Bryson spun around. We came to help. You shouldn't have to deal with this old place alone. How thoughtful, I said, noting how their eyes darted to the windows. But I'm fine. Don't be stubborn, Emerson huffed. We're family. Family, I stepped closer. Like when you convinced Dad to skip my college graduation, or when you told him I was only visiting him for money. They had the decency to look uncomfortable. Just let us in for a minute, Bryson tried again. Mom's worried about... About what exactly? I crossed my arms. That I might find something interesting in my worthless inheritance. Emerson's face tightened. Mom said you'd be difficult. We'll be back with a lawyer. Perfect, I called after them as they stormed off. Bring 2. Ellis waited until their car disappeared. They saw the paintings through the windows. We need to move fast. I nodded, pulling out my phone. Naomi, launch the website. It's time Alexandra Rose made her debut in the art world. The game was on, and I intended to win. And sold. The auctioneer's gavel struck with finality. Lot 47 goes to the gentleman in the back for $2.8 million. From behind my dark sunglasses, I watched my first painting find its new home. Alexandra Rose's debut auction had exceeded all expectations. Magnificent work, whispered Ellis, posing as my assistant. Your father would be proud. My phone buzzed. Naomi's text read, Zoe just rage quit the country club. Apparently, they denied her membership renewal. Something about bounced checks. I smiled, remembering the look on the bank manager's face when I'd shown him proof that Dad's investment portfolio had been largely empty promises and clever accounting. Ms. Rose, a distinguished woman approached. I'm Margaret from the Metropolitan Museum. That authentication work you did on the war-era pieces was remarkable. We'd love to discuss a consulting position. I'd be delighted, I replied in the British accent I'd perfected over the last 3 months. My schedule's rather full, but perhaps next week. As Margaret walked away, Ellis nudged me. Incoming, 3 o'clock. Zoe's designer heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached, her face a mask of barely contained fury. What an interesting coincidence, she said, eyeing me suspiciously. I never knew Melanie had such a well-connected cousin. Alexandra Rose, I extended my hand. And you are? Don't play games, she hissed, dropping her voice. I know what you're doing. Those paintings from the auction. They look remarkably similar to some photographs I found in Robert's study. How fascinating. I kept my voice level. Though I'm curious why you're here, Zoe. Surely not shopping. I heard the mansion's up for sale. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into her clutch. This isn't over. That cabin is mine, I cut her off. Just like everything in it. Dad made sure of that. You ungrateful little... Ms. Rose, Ellis interrupted smoothly. Your car is ready. The gallery opening awaits. I turned back to Zoe. Do give my best to Emerson and Bryson. I heard their credit cards were declined at that lovely spa in Aspen. Such a shame. Walking away, I heard her furious whispers to someone on her phone. Let her plot. Every move she made only dug her deeper into the hole she'd created. Back at the cabin, I supervised the installation of the new security system. The remaining paintings had been professionally stored, each one a card I could play at the perfect moment. The renovation plans are ready, Ellis said, spreading blueprints across the table. The cabin's transformation into a private gallery begins next week. I traced the plans with my finger, imagining Dad's smile. Perfect. Let's show the world what real wealth looks like. And let my dear stepfamily watch it all slip through their greedy fingers. They're selling the Porsche, Naomi announced, bursting into the cabin's newly renovated kitchen. And Bryson got fired from his cushy executive job, the one Zoe arranged through your dad's connections. I poured us both coffee in the antique cups Dad had collected. How's Emerson handling their fall from grace? Her Instagram's gone dark since the country club incident, but that's not the biggest news. Naomi pulled out her phone. Look what I found in the newspaper archives. The yellow digital image showed a younger Zoe, standing beside a man who wasn't my father. The headline read, Local art dealer disappears with client investments. That's impossible, I whispered. The date. This was 2 months before she met Dad. Ellis appeared from the study, holding a stack of old letters. Not impossible. Your father knew. What? He laid the letters on the counter. I found these hidden in the basement safe. Your father had hired a private investigator to look into Zoe's past. She was married to an art dealer who ran a massive scam, then vanished with millions. And she helped him, Naomi finished, scrolling through more articles. But they could never prove it. My hands shook as I read the letters. So when she married Dad, she was looking for another mark, Ellis confirmed. But your father was smarter. He knew what she was after. A sharp knock at the door made us all jump. Through the security camera, I saw Zoe standing there, looking decidedly less polished than usual. Open up, Melanie. We need to talk. I nodded to Ellis, who opened the door. Zoe stormed in, her designer outfit wrinkled, her makeup slightly smeared. Where is it? Where's Thomas's collection? Who's Thomas? I asked innocently. Don't play dumb. My first husband's art collection, the one your father stole from me. She was practically screaming now. I know he hid it here. I picked up one of the letters. You mean the collection you and Thomas stole from dozens of innocent investors? The one you thought Dad had found? The colour drained from her face. Dad never had it, I continued, but he knew you'd tear everything apart looking for it. That's why he left me the cabin, to expose you. You're lying, she whispered. The FBI would be very interested in these letters, Naomi said, filming everything on her phone, especially since the case is still open. Zoe lunged for the letters, but Ellis blocked her path. "Leave," I commanded, "before I call the authorities." She backed away, pointing a shaking finger at me. "This isn't over. I still have proof about your precious Alexandra Rose." After she fled, Ellis locked the door. "She's desperate. That makes her dangerous." I stared at the letters, my father's final gift taking on new meaning. "Then let's end this, once and for all." "Your father recorded everything," Ellis said, playing the video on his laptop. The footage showed Dad in his study, looking directly at the camera. "If you're watching this, Mel, then I'm gone, and Zoe's true colors have finally shown." His familiar voice filled the cabin study. I knew what she was from the start. The art collection she's desperate to find. It's a ghost. Thomas laundered the money through offshore accounts years ago. I gripped the desk as the video continued. I played along, letting her think she was manipulating me. But everything I did was to protect you. The cabin, the paintings, they're your birthright. Your mother and I spent years building this collection, and now it's yours. Tears blurred my vision. All those years I thought he'd abandoned me. A loud crash interrupted the video. Emerson burst in, wild-eyed and disheveled. "How dare you?" she screamed. "You ruined everything. Mum's being investigated by the FBI. Bryson's drinking himself stupid, and I had to move back into my old apartment." "Your problems aren't my concern," I said, standing my ground. "We deserve that art collection. Do you know what we went through playing nice with your pathetic father?" Ellis stepped forward. "I suggest you leave." "Or what?" She pulled out her phone. "I have proof that Alexandra Rose is a fraud. One call to the press." "Go ahead," I challenged. "Tell them Alexandra Rose is really Melanie Norton. Tell them how your mother married my father to steal a non-existent art collection. I'm sure the media will love that story." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I played another video, security footage of Zoe's earlier meltdown. "Your mother confessed to everything on camera. How long do you think it'll take the FBI to connect her to Thomas's crimes?" Emerson's phone slipped from her trembling fingers. "Face it," I continued. "You're not victims here. You're accomplices. Every nasty comment, every lie you told Dad about me, it was all part of your mother's scheme." "We needed that money," she whispered. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You thought you could take everything from me. Instead, you lost everything yourselves." She backed away, tears streaking her mascara. "Mom said she had one last plan, something about proof in Dad's old office." My blood ran cold. "When?" "Tonight. She's breaking into the mansion before the new owners move in." Emerson fled, leaving the door open behind her. Ellis was already calling security. "I'll have the mansion watched." I shook my head, grabbing my keys. "No time. Whatever proof she thinks she has, we need to get there first." "Melanie, wait!" But I was already running to my car. The final confrontation was coming, whether I was ready or not. The mansion's security light flickered as I pulled up. Zoe's Mercedes was parked haphazardly in the driveway, one door still open. I called Naomi. "Police are on their way," she said. "Ellis is right behind you." Light spilled from Dad's office window. I found the door unlocked and slipped inside. The sound of frantic rummaging led me upstairs. Zoe stood in Dad's office, tearing through his desk drawers. Papers littered the floor around her feet. "Looking for something?" I asked. She whirled around, clutching a manila envelope. "I knew you'd come, always trying to be the hero, just like your father." "It's over, Zoe. The FBI has the letters, the videos, everything. You think you're so clever." She pulled documents from the envelope. "But your father left one thing unprotected, the proof that your precious Alexandra Rose has been selling stolen art." I stepped closer. "Those papers are fake." "Are they?" "Your father documented everything, remember? Including the true origins of his collection." She waved the papers triumphantly. "One anonymous tip about where these paintings really came from, and your empire crumbles." "You mean these papers?" Ellis's voice came from the doorway. He held up an identical envelope. "The ones Robert gave me for safekeeping years ago. complete with certificates of authenticity and legal purchase records. Zoe's face went slack. That's impossible. I found these in his safe. You found what he wanted you to find, I said. Another breadcrumb in his trail. He knew you'd try something like this. Police sirens wailed in the distance. It doesn't matter, she snarled. I'll tell them everything. About the fake identity, the secret sales. Go ahead. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Her own voice filled the room, confessing to her role in Thomas's art scam. I'm sure they'd love to hear all about your history with stolen art. She lunged at me, but Ellis was faster. He caught her arm as two police officers burst in. Zoe Ortiz, one officer said. FBI's been looking for you. Something about an old fraud case. As they led her away, she screamed, You're just like him. You planned this all along. No, Zoe, I called after her. I just learned from the best. Dad taught me that real wealth isn't about money. It's about integrity. Later, standing in the office with Ellis, I found one last letter in Dad's desk. It was addressed to me. You did it, kiddo. You proved that karma works in mysterious ways. The cabin is yours now, truly yours. Make it something beautiful. Outside, camera flashes lit up the night as reporters gathered. Tomorrow, the world would know the truth about Zoe's crimes and Alexandra Rose's true identity. But tonight, in this moment, I finally felt my father's presence again, and I knew he was proud. Welcome to the Morrison Lake Gallery, I announced to the crowd gathered outside the transformed cabin, where every piece tells a story of resilience and truth. Camera flashes lit up the morning air as reporters jostled for position. The gallery's grand opening had drawn art lovers and critics from across the country. Ms. Norton, a reporter called out, how does it feel to be vindicated after your stepmother's conviction? This isn't about vindication, I said, catching Naomi's proud smile in the crowd. It's about honoring my father's legacy. Every piece in this collection represents his belief in justice and patience. Inside, visitors gasped at the carefully curated exhibits. Ellis stood by the centerpiece, the first painting Dad had ever collected, now worth millions. Your mother would have loved this, he whispered as I passed. A familiar face caught my attention. Ernest, the family lawyer, stood examining a landscape piece. I knew, he admitted as I approached. Your father made me promise to stay quiet until the right moment. It killed me to watch Zoe gloating at the will reading. You played your part perfectly, I assured him. We all did. The museum's final room held a surprise, a wall dedicated to the original cabin, showing its transformation. In the center hung a photo of Dad and me, taken here when I was young. Excuse me, a soft voice said. I turned to find Emerson, looking smaller somehow without her designer clothes and attitude. You shouldn't be here, I started, but she raised her hand. Please, She swallowed hard. I wanted to say you were right, about everything. Mom's lies, the way we treated you, I'm sorry. Apologies don't fix everything. I know, but watching you build something real, something meaningful. She gestured at the gallery. It made me realize what we threw away. Not the money or status, but the chance to be actual family. I studied her face, seeing genuine regret for the first time. The gallery offers art education programs, I said finally. We need volunteers. Hope flickered in her eyes. Really? Prove you've changed. Actions, not words. She nodded and slipped away into the crowd. Ellis appeared at my side. Your father once told me his greatest masterpiece wouldn't be a painting, he said. It would be watching you discover your own strength. I touched the photo of Dad and me, remembering his words about valuable things not being what they seem. The gallery's first exhibition opens in an hour, I said, straightening my jacket. Let's show them what real art looks like. Outside, the morning sun caught the cabin's restored walls, making them glow like a beacon. Just as Dad had planned all along, not just a building full of precious art, but a testament to the power of patience, justice, and the sweetest revenge of all, success.